So, little outline of my talk. The main purpose of this talk is like try to motivate data scientists or anybody that has some like useful, important data that you value and you would like to see out there, but you don't really know how because like you are not a web developer. So I hope that I can help you to give some exposition for that data. And then I myself was working and to do something like this, and I was searching for like the different frameworks, and I was actually looking for something that anybody could easily manage with a graphic user interface, because sometimes you have to collaborate with people that are not technical, and they would be able to help you if like they could just use a graphic interface to edit the content of a website, for example. That something that was flexible to change and no need of JavaScript, because you know like some people are allergic to JavaScript. So yeah, I was searching for something like this, and Django is a very good option. And then I started to learn about Django, and then I realized that for doing that, I would have to learn how to deploy Django. That's like a bit painful because you need a server and you need to host it, and maybe it's not very easy for people that do not do web development. So yeah, so I will present you the option that I found to do this. And I'll start with a little disclaimer, and I will talk about Lector, the best solution that I found, and give you a little example using some politic data to construct a website with that data, okay? So yeah, so first disclaimer, I am a scientist, so I don't do web development. But yeah, be kind with me. I'm just trying to motivate other people like me to try to have their websites out there. Okay. And the second disclaimer is that I don't encourage anything illegal for exposing politicians, you know, so yeah, just to be clear. And I feel that I have to say that because a lot of things happened since I proposed this talk in Brazil. And one thing that made me a little scary is that there are 4 people in jail in Brazil right now. They allegedly exposed these 2 guys, the conversations that they had. This guy is a judge, this is a prosecutor, and they worked together to incarcerate this old man. The problem is that this old man happened to be the favorite to the Brazilian elections in Brazil, last elections. And then with him out of the way, this another guy was able to rise to power and nominate that judge to Minister of Justice. And what made me a little more scared about this is that both of them came out publicly threatening the journalists that published these leakings, you know. So I just want to make very clear that when they say exposing politicians, I'm not talking about anything illegal, just to be safe, you know. And then maybe I should change the title of my talk for something more like Web Development with Lector, an introduction for dummy data scientists. And then I can like sleep well this night knowing that nothing gonna happen, okay? So it's like Lector is pretty easy to install, you pip install it, and you start your, for like template, just doing Lector quick start. And then you can build your website, so it's like, instead of like in Django that you would have a server running and you would have like your calls to the server and have your web page. Here you build and then you get all your HTML generated, and then you can do Lector deploy and send it to a host, and then you have a website. So it's everything static. and you don't have to worry about like maintaining a server. Okay, but you can have a local server, and that's, I think, the coolest part of Lector, that you have this local server that helps you to edit your website and it gives you some flexibility. I will show you how it works. Okay, so when you run the Lector Quick Start, it generates this template of website, and the basically most important things here are the contents, the model, and the template. The way that Lector works is that in the model, you define the variables that you want to feed to your template. In the template, you define like the template of the page that you want to construct. And in the folder content, you just need to go there and create another folders. And in those folders, you have a file that's called content.lr. That's just a plain text. And putting some content to this content file, Lector goes there and automatically creates the web page for you just using the templates that you defined. Okay, and then you have your HTML page. Okay, so a little more concrete example. Here I have the model. So the model is called page, and I have defined here two variables. One is the title, and the other is the body. And here in the right, I have the page.html. That's actually a Jinja 2 template. And here, you see that I define where I want to inject the title, here where I want to inject the body. And in that content file that I mentioned before, I just have to put the name of the variable, column, and the content that I want in title. And the definition of this variable ends when I put these 3 dashes. So this is pretty much the syntax. And when you do this, you get everything rendered, and this is the result. And the thing I like in Lector is that it's very easy to change the templates, because if you need a new variable, you just go there to your model and you define a new variable, and then you are ready to go and use it in your template, as I did here, adding a subtitle. So it's like pretty easy to change anything if you want. And at the end, like this is the result in your web browser. If you run the Lector server, you would see it in your local server. And here in the top right, you always have this edit button. So if you click there, you go to your model, and then you can change those fields by hand here in this CMS. That you can like edit your page. So it's like any content that you can change them by hand. And as I mentioned before, if somebody that's non-technical are working with you, they can do this for you. And the greatest part is that if it's well configured, you can just click this cloud button and it gets published. So like it gets deployed to your host. And if you click back to the eye, you get back to the preview of your page. So it's pretty easy to change. So back to the political stuff. Okay, so in Brazil since 2009, we have this law of transparency that obeys the government to publish in a public API all the expense they made. So every politician, like they have like a personal budget, and this is all out there. And then you can access that API. But like for journalists or people that work like in organization and in general, that's very hard to digest, like to go to that API and learn something about it. So it's like, it would be nice if some people like us could go there and create websites with this data digested that they could use for whatever they want. And this was a little bit what I did here. So I extract a table with the expense that the parties made for different companies. So basically, I have a column that says the name of the party, the company that provided some service, and this is the value of the document, the value of the purchase. That's in millions of reais. That's the Brazilian currency. Basically like that. I want to transform this table in a simple to view website, okay? And would be nice if it could look something like this. So like a grid with parties. So in Brazil, it's a bit weird. We have 32 parties right now. In that table, we have 39 because they change and they merge through time. But yeah, so I would like to have a grid with these 32 parties, and clicking in one of them, I would like to see some summary page with like the top 10 companies that they used and how much money they spent in those companies. So it's basically like that, and I would try to do it with Lector. So I said no JavaScript, but yeah, you can do everything without JavaScript. Here, I just use the little JavaScript to do the graphs, to do the chart. And I could do like with matplotlib, but it would not move, you know, and it's nice when things are moving in web pages. So yeah, I use the chart.js, and basically you just have to add this canvas in your template, and you just copy and paste from the chart.js page, and you have a template of bar chart that you can use. So it's pretty straightforward. And back into the lector template, you see that here for adding content to that chart for the chart.js, the only thing that I actually have to change are these 4 lines. So the labels, that means like the name of the companies that they used, and the data, that would be how much they spent in each of the companies. And just I'm changing the color to match like the standard color of each party. But that's basically, and if I use this as a template in Lector, then I can create the content file in the most simple way that maybe the web developers would be very angry with me to doing this, but it's basically you just go there and format a string, you know? So it's like you have a string with the variables that you want to define, and just you have a function to write the content to this string and save it to a file. So then Lector will find these files and transform them in web page. So it's super straightforward. You just run a for loop to the columns in your spreadsheet, and that's done. So yeah, just to show you the result, I have here the website with all the parties, and if I click in one of the parties, I see the plot with everything there. If I put the mouse here, I see like the company. And as I said before, if you click here in the edit button, you have your editable page, and then I can change the name of this party for PyCon, for example. And then I save it, yeah. So like, I save it, and I have the preview, and now this party is called PyCon. So it's like, it's really easy to edit manually, and if I want to publish the change, I can hit here and publish it, okay? So yeah, back to the presentation. Again, I could have done these bar charts moving without using JavaScript if I use Altair or Bouquet. I found this to be a little bit more complicated than just copy and paste those codes there. So I end up just using char.js. But if you want to really avoid JavaScript, you could do the same thing, basically, but without JavaScript. And a little bit in what you can do. So it's like I was talking about this Brazilian data set. Maybe you think that it's not available for you because like you are in UK and you don't have this kind of data set. But John Sandel holds this democracy hackathon at the PyData UK. And there he presented this nice document that they have like a list of political data sets in UK. So there are a lot of useful information that are public, and if you care about some of them, you can go there and make a website explaining a little bit about it and make it easily accessible to people that don't have the technical knowledge to access these APIs and stuff. Another thing is that in Brazil, there's this project that's called Serenata Jam, that what they have done was to use this political data that I showed you to detect frauds. So it's like they have written in Python a lot of machine learning tools that are able to identify automatically if something looks odd. Like, for example, they paid for a meal huge value that doesn't match with any possible meal, or like they should not be expending that kind of money in a meal, you know, and other kind of stuff like some politicians being in two places at the same time, and these places are like 3,000 kilometers from each other, you know. So yeah, they have this cool project, and the nice thing is also they have a bot in Python as well to publish it automatically and call out the politicians. So it's like they have the Twitter handle of the politician, and they just send a mention for that politician automatically saying, this guy just bought a 3,000 pounds meal at this place, you know. And yeah, so this is more like exposing politicians really, and sell them with Python. And actually, I've used their API to access the data, because like they made a nice work of like providing a easier to access API. And I think I went too fast in everything that I want to say. But yeah, if you want to take a look in deeper in this project, it's in my GitHub. It's not really a project, it's more like a proof of concept, that something that you could do with any kind of data that you have. And yeah, you can also access my GitHub page, and there you have my Twitter and anything if you want to contact me. And I will be here for the sprints tomorrow, so if you want to do something like this to give some publicity to your data or anything, I can help. So talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rafael. That was very interesting indeed. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, I'm coming.
Thank you very much for that. Feel free not to answer this one if you'd rather not, but what sort of data do you think we should be looking for in the UK at the moment?
What kind of data would look in UK?
Politically, what do you think would be, what do you think we should be looking for to produce this sort of?
I don't know. Well, there are a lot of things about Brexit that could go out there, you know. People said a lot of unreasonable things, and then you can like mostly show that they are false using data. So that would be one thing. And I think that that's the point as well. With a lot of fake news, maybe if we can create new sources of trustable data, it would be nice. So yeah, anything that I'm sure that we have a lot of things out there. I don't have any specifics.
Thank you. I'll just come to the front before I ask so that I can look at you all. Any other questions? Yes.
It was great. Have you detected anything suspicious or anomalies in the data in Brazil?
Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of minor things. There is one thing that particularly bothers me, that there is consultants for laws, in law consultants, that most parties use. And it's like the same private company, and they are like taking millions for parties that are very different in the political spectrum. So it's like you think, would your lefty party, would the same consultants to send the laws to that company that's the same one that do consultants for the far right? You know, so it's like when your law goes to the Congress, they know all the flaws that you have in your text or something like this, you know? So this is one thing, for example, that looks very weird to me. But yeah, there are a lot of small things, and these guys from Serenata Jam, they actually raise the point of many of these small things. So basically, the response of the government was like, we will not like create a big deal about £1,000, you know, that doesn't worth pursuing for like getting a senator or a congressman out just for doing this small thing, you know. So yeah, there are some weird stuff.
Amazing. Thank you very much. We have time for a few more questions. Any other questions for our speaker? Yes.
Hey there, thanks for the talk, that was great. Maybe I'm too cynical of politicians, but it seems really interesting to me that there is this API that you can find out this information, and it seems interesting to me that the politicians obviously had to vote to make this a law, that they have to publish this data. I guess not a technical question, but I'm just intrigued, what was the background in that? Like, how did that come about, that, that this data is even available in the first place?
Sorry?
How did it come about that this data, this API exists?
I think like back then in 2009, they just thought that people would not care. Was not that, yeah, so it's like, was not this political moment right now, you know, like everybody cares about politics. But in Brazil, back in 2009, I think like they could look nice by voting that and not get into much trouble because people would not care anyway. And it's if you see some of the data that's out there is like in these 10 gigabytes PDFs that are very difficult to access. So like I think they realized that people would not have real access to that, but I think it's our job to make it accessible, you know, like.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. If that is not the case, let's thank our speaker one more time.